Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss, Kalen Carr. From 14 to 10, the Audi 2021 MLS Cup Playoffs are whittling away at those who want to lift the Philip F. Andrews Trophy on December 11th. We had a nice weekend, 2 doubleheaders, a lot of fun. Tuesday, another doubleheader on FS1, Nashville, Orlando, Seattle, Salt Lake. Thanksgiving Day, Colorado, Portland. You saw those goals from Sebastian Blanco. We're going to talk to Cole Bassett on this show today. He's seen it all in Colorado. Boys, what's up? How you feeling? I'm nice and fresh this morning because I wasn't on the show last night, but I enjoyed what you had to offer. Everybody feeling good? Feeling great? Yeah. Like, you're off back-to-backs here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready to go. I could do another back-to-back today. Let's play 2.
I'm not ready for that. We're just doing 1 here on this show. How about this? Give me your top moment so far. And, Dave, I think we got to start with you because all of us have only experienced it from afar. But you saw history in person. It was the dupiest dupe of all dupe.
Yeah, I drove down from New York City, where I live, obviously, greatest city in the world, to Subaru Park for the Red Bull Philly game. It was awesome. You get down and you just feel the energy the moment you pull into the parking lot and just a bunch of random tailgates walking around, talking to people, meeting people. Man, the light blue with the electric shock jersey, that thing is so nice. And when you see like 5,000 of them in person, you're like, yeah, take my money. I really need one of those. And then you get into the building. I've been to 2 U.S. Open Cups there. I've been to some college stuff there. I've been to other MLS action, but this thing was electric. Like, freezing day, sun setting on the river, stadium packed to the gills, and everyone just locked in, and a ton of belief in the stadium. And then the second half, I think it started to go away a little, and I was on the opposite end, right behind the goal of where Glesnes scored. And so I'm sitting there, and I see him chest it down, and the ball leaves his foot, and I can see the window that he has to aim for. And all of a sudden, as it goes over Cornell's hand, it drops to the right into that window. And I leap up, and I go like this, and I'm screaming. And I look to my right, and my 2 friends who are Red Bull fans are just seated. It's like, there's uninterested.
There's a great video from somewhere in the stadium going around. I think I saw it on Reddit of like, as soon as the ball drops to Glesnes, the whole stadium's like, shoo! Yeah. Like, they know that this guy could hit him from there. It was an awesome moment.
And the moment it went in, the place explodes, and you could see the Jim Curtin sprint because everyone else is in the attacking half. Like, he's the only person who's not up there. So he's the only person running across the field to the fans to celebrate with them. You get the dupe song, and then after the game, they go to celebrate, and Jim Curtin's like locked into every part of the stadium. Like, the players do their like walk and their applaud, and Jim Curtin's like 5 minutes in each corner, like pointing at people like, this is us, you. Like, he was so jacked up, and he was so ready to go. It was awesome. So it was, I mean, you could feel when the goal went in, like, celebrate, and then everyone looks around, and like everyone's having the thought of like, I was here. That's a historic moment in MLS history. That's going to be one of the great goals, and like, you could feel that recognition immediately of like, holy cow. So yeah, that would be probably my top moment of the playoffs.
Yeah, it might be. We're going to have to go from there. Look, all 4 home teams won, so four cities, 4 fan bases had that experience. Maybe not of the 123rd minute Glesnes goal, but of winning a playoff game and keeping it moving. And Doyle, that might be the narrative, the storyline so far of these young playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, home field almost always matters in the playoffs. I think that was a little bit less so last year, but it's back to sort of normal operating procedure here with 4 home games and 4 wins. And look, to me, that just reinforces the importance of the regular season. Like, if you want to go far in the postseason, you got to make sure that you bring it during the regular season, and you show up for 34 weeks. And teams like Philly and NYCFC and, you know, the Timbers and Sporting KC, I mean, they had some downs, but they had more ups than that, and they were able to capitalize on that. And, you know, Gasman's description of the crowd being so locked in and so, you know, into the game, and like, that's influential in these big games. We've heard players talk about it since pro sports have started. We've heard players talk about how crowds can influence games, and we saw that not just in Chester. We saw that in Kansas City. We saw it in the Bronx, and then of course we saw it in Portland as well. And it's nice to see teams reward their fans the way these home teams did, and make sure that the regular season it is so important to give yourself a good shot at going far to the postseason.
Yeah, for instance, you might not want to lose 4 straight games to start the season. Just as an example, I mean, I just kind of pulled that out of nowhere. That's a theoretical.
But can we also say, I think 3 of the 4 games, maybe Vancouver, KC different, the away team started better. Only Minnesota got a goal, and then they decided they only had to play 35 minutes, which is not the case in the MLS playoff rulebook. But it does give you an example of, Atlanta didn't take advantage. The Red Bulls were better for 10 minutes. Not great, but they were better. But Atlanta didn't take advantage. And so when you are the away team, if you do not hit perfectly on your moments, you're not going to make it through in the playoffs.
Yeah, you might leave yourself, I don't know, vulnerable to Sebastian Blanco, Kalen.
Yeah, no, to Blanco, I think for me, all due respect to Graham Susie, who's a legend, but I just feel like the performance of the first round for me so far, obviously, we've still got a couple players to make their mark, most notably probably Raul Ruiz-Diaz or Hani Mukhtar, and maybe Nani will have something to say about it, or DK. But I think, when you look at, and we talked about this in the Twitter spaces leading up to the matches yesterday, and we said, I said, if I could go across the list of any player in MLS and you're saying, all right, we're going to build a team for the playoffs, which feels like a very extra time thing to do, right? And you did a little bit of a spiral draft or whatever it is. If I got first pick, I'm taking Sebastian Blanco just because at this point, just such a clutch player. He's an interesting one because he's most likely to throw kind of a reckless challenge in the first 10 minutes of a match to set the tone that might get him a red card. In this case, it didn't quite connect and got a yellow. Most likely to maybe get in opposing manager's face, most likely to set the tone from that perspective, but then also most likely to hit the back of the net a couple times. And just like the quality in and around the top of the box. Minnesota United did themselves no favor leaving acres and acres of space right in that zone 14 where he likes to operate and can really damage you. But boy, did he take his chances well. And if you look ahead to the next round and their matchup against Colorado, one of the biggest things we've talked about is maybe that lack of one player that you can really trust on in a playoff game. And boy, does Portland have it, maybe more so than most teams or any team in MLS right now.
4:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Just let me make sure that people know.
Do it.
So they can plan their Thanksgiving around this, as the Bassett family is doing. We'll talk to Cole in just a little bit. But 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, Fox Deportes for that Colorado-Portland one. And then the doubleheader on Tuesday starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's on FS1 and Fox Deportes. But can I just... Go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? Because I didn't watch on Saturday. In danger of getting Kalen kicked off the show, was there any argument between whether Maxime Crépeau should have done better on that Graham Zusi goal?
I don't know. Let's clear the floor here for Doyle and Kalen to just go battle royale.
Where was the power step
Goalkeeper
taken?
Controversies.
What does Brandon Scurry have to say about this? And has Tony Miola hit SiriusXM with his take as well? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I just want to throw it out there. Sebastian Blanco he's incredible, and what he's doing at 33 is special. I mean, he's going to keep doing it, and he's in contract negotiations, by the way, with the Timbers. You expect him to stick around. It's a pretty good piece of evidence for him, for his own case. But Graham Zusi's 35 years old. I just want to say it. Like, the dude is 35, and what he did against Vancouver was absurd. He basically dictated the way that game was played. Kansas City said, we can sit back because Graham Zusi is going to play, like, I would say Tom Brady, but I have to say Patrick Mahomes, and just dish and just chuck and then make special plays on his own. I mean, the goal that he scored, I immediately was like, my God, I've seen this goal in person against the Timbers like 8 years ago. He scored that exact same goal from that angle. That is his spot. And I think even more impressive is winning the ball, starting the counter, making the run again at 35, and that cross back across for Kyrie Shelton. I mean, it's just so on point. He has to lunge and dive, and he makes that look just technically easy. He makes it look so simple to be at that extended point on a full sprint and bring it back across the box to Kyrie. What a performance from him. We'll get into all of it in depth here in a second. On today's show, we're going to recap the playoffs. We're going to look ahead to Tuesday. Cole Bassett's going to join us. We'll hit a little bit of mail because there's other news around MLS. Bob Bradley is out at LAFC. We haven't had a conversation about that. Josie Altidore reportedly, Fabrizio Romano saying it's done for him in Toronto. So those things might be, I don't know, they might be linked. Let's keep it rolling. MLSsoccer.com, Steve Zakuani's spot for your takeaways from Sunday. Sam Jones has the same takeaways from NYCFC Atlanta. And also, by the way, the 2022 home openers are out for every single club. You can see the week 1 schedule. It seems crazy how much news is happening, but MLSsoccer.com is your spot. Let's dive in. Let's start with Philly Red Bulls. Jakob Glesnes, the banger is what we remember, Doyle. Depending on your perspective, you might not want to remember the 123 minutes prior. I mean, we described this probably 80 times over the course of the weekend as a rock fight. Mm-hmm. Give up people that didn't watch an idea of what they didn't see in this match.
The first 60 minutes was just, two cars smashing into each other at central midfield over and over and over again, and very little soccer was played. I thought that at the hour mark, once Jim Curtin brought on Sergio Santos and went to that 4-4-2 diamond and started threatening the Red Bulls in behind, because Santos has that straight line pace that nobody else on the Union has, that opened the game up. That didn't allow the Red Bulls to compress the game and turn it into purely a game of 50-50s. Now, there was still a lot of that, obviously, and the Union don't mind playing that type of game either, but it did become more of a soccer game from the 60-minute mark. And, of course, Patrick Klimala, when he came on for the Red Bulls, he helped open up the game a little bit in the other way. So if you do want to rewatch it, I would suggest just, fast forwarding to the hour mark and going from there. Because like the final hour of the game, and I'm including extra time in that, there were a lot of breakaways, a lot of win the second ball at midfield and somebody's taken off through the line and finding space in behind. And, it looked like the story of the game was going to be the Union strikers kind of choking away 3 or 4 big chances, which is worrisome when you think about how they exited the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals. I thought they played better than Club America in that second leg. They had their chances. They didn't finish. They had their chances in this one. They didn't finish, but then Jakob Glesnes bails them out. It was a really good performance from Carlos Coronel as well. I thought both in terms of stopping shots and then coming off his line and being a very modern sweeper keeper. And obviously, Andre Blake had to make 2 big saves, and he made them. He's Andre Blake. So it was a lot of what we expected. And again, that means skip the first 60 minutes on rewatch.
What'd you see in person, Dave? Do you have the same opinion?
Yeah. What Doyle said, there are 2 teams that want to get the ball into certain areas to press. I think then once you get into a game where both teams are like that, there just became a lack of belief that they even wanted to pass into certain areas. And that was what was a little frustrating, was Sean Davis picks up the ball with space, Jose Martino picks it up with space, and it's just blind balls into channels, not to anyone, and at no point could they really build through anyone. I thought as the game went along, Philly found some space down their left wing. Kai Wagner was fairly dangerous.
Yeah.
Paxton Aronson started to come over and help a little bit. They created some overloads. And then, as Doyle mentioned with the subs, I think it's both Santos's ability to stretch the field, but also then you have he and Shabilko are both comfortable doing either. And with Gazdag, he always wants to come in, and then Shabilko always has to try and stretch the field, which he's not as good at. Santos doesn't mind coming to the ball or going over the top, and Shabilko's the same. And so I think when the 2 of them are up there, you just have the most uncertain nature for the defense of what they're going to see and what's going to happen. Santos should have won the game in throughout regulation, whatever. I'd be surprised if he didn't start in the next game. Obviously, the COVID-19 issue with Montero and Mbaizo changes maybe what Jim Curtin has planned, because maybe it would have been Gazdag, in that number 10, or he could have moved things around if he does have Montero in that team. So I thought that threw them off for a little bit, but to Philly's credit, it never really felt like they were going to lose, right? It felt like it was their game to win, and it was there for them the whole time. And I can confirm that it was 2 construction trucks running into each other. You could feel the dust coming off it in the crowd. At some point, I went with Ben Baer as well, ETR Hall of Famer. At some point, he he said to us, it was 280 combined passes completed in the first half.
It was 220. It was like 223.
226.
226.
Something like that.
Okay, and it was like
the
lowest.
And the regular
lowest of the
season
year.
worst was 280.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, that's what we're seeing. I can confirm that was accurate.
Kaylin, now what for the Union? We'll wrap it up for the Red Bulls here in a second, but the Union on Tuesday night are going to be watching real closely Nashville and Orlando at 8 p.m. on FS1. Who do you think they want to get through? How much belief did they sort of pick up here that this could indeed be their year? They're still without a trophy other than the Supporters' Shield? So it was a big win for them, but the Open Cup finals that they lost, I mean, this could be history-making for the Union this year if they can get rolling.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think about. The expectations for them were lowered this year, and I think that was for good reason. You know, you lose two best 11 quality players to Europe, and Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson, and yeah, you bring in a couple other players. They've found some nice pieces that have come in and done quite well, but I would say, they've been even flying under the radar throughout the season, and I think both of these teams that they may potentially play have gotten a little bit more of the attention, whether it was Nashville or Orlando. I think teams have, media, ourselves included, have looked a little bit more towards those teams and thought, I surely didn't expect the Union to finish second in the East. And for them to get home field now, I think that's really the biggest thing they've done for themselves, is that they will play this game in Chester as opposed to having to go to Nashville or to Orlando. And, if you look, I kind of throw this game out a little bit because just the way Red Bull play, it's very hard not to, you can say, okay, well, you're at home, you should be the one dictating the play or the terms, but the way Red Bull play, it makes it very difficult to do that. And I think what the smart thing was when Jim went to two strikers up top, he basically just said, all right, if it's going to be a rock fight, let's play a rock fight with our two strikers up top, and let's have those sort of 50-50 balls go with Corey Burke and Sergio Santos up there. And you saw Corey Burke even at times where ball bounces off two or three guys back and forth, and then he continues, he just is able to kind of find the ball, and Sergio Santos just with his pace. Just when it turns into a 50-50, you're going to go with the guy who has more speed there. And I think that, worked for them. Didn't end up going with a goal, and then Glesnes kind of bails them out. But I think it's going to be a completely different match in the next game. I think Philly has the ability to play a little bit more. So if they play against Orlando and it becomes a little bit more about kind of breaking lines or playing and getting their guys back, I think will be big for them, especially on the right-hand side. I think Mbaizo is, under the radar, a very important player for Philly in the way that they like to attack. So getting his ability to kind of get forward and add to that, and then Montero as well, just a little bit extra quality. I thought Paxton Aronson was very good in this one, and I think he'll probably end up going back to the bench and to a sort of a super sub energy role, but I thought he was good enough to at least stake a claim and make a harder choice for Jim Curtin to be able to say, this kid didn't look afraid stepping into his first playoff game with some minutes this year. I think 5 or 6 starts maybe, but he was very good. I thought at times he was the most of a if it's a different type of game, because even in a Red Bull match he looked good. But if it's a different type of match where it's more about having the ball at feet, trying to disbalance the defense, and try and break down maybe an organized Nashville team, or trying to get in between the lines to bring Antonio Carlos out and open up things in behind for Sergio Santos, whoever plays. I could see him being an interesting player I think he's made it hard for Jim to take him out. We'll see.
We will preview that matchup once we know what it is, of course, Thursday. We're going to have the podcast coming out Thursday night after Rapids Timbers, so stay tuned for that one. Before we real quick preview Nashville Orlando, Dave, wrap it up for the Red Bulls. They like receipts. So let's give them some receipts here on 2021. Got to the playoffs 12 straight years. That is a huge accomplishment for them. And they made progress after it looked a little bit dead in the water in August for the Red Bulls. But they got a big offseason coming. Looks like some big changes potentially. Kyle Duncan may be out of here. Christian Casares, maybe they sell him. Got to re-sign Sean Davis. Carlos Coronel is on loan, so you want to lock that one in. I think Fabio's on loan too, so they've sort of remade
Tom
the roster,
Edwards
but it
as
doesn't
well,
seem like
yeah.
the makeover is. Yeah, he wants to go back to Stoke apparently, reportedly. I think reportedly is probably the right word there. Like, what now for the Red Bulls? What does 2022 look like through the lens of this playoff journey that was so encouraging once to get there, but less so after they get out in the first round?
I don't think a lot of the names you said are huge losses for them. Like, I think if you can bring Coronel back, and that's the key one for them of the pieces that we're talking about, I think you can feel like you have the spine of your team coming back, and you have your identity, which was being a great defensive group.
Sean Davis would be a huge loss. Sean Davis would be a huge loss for.
We'll talk about that when Sean Davis leaves the New York Red
Okay,
Bulls.
all right.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation when New Jersey's own Sean Davis signs with another
Fair
team.
enough.
Yes, you are correct in that.
What about Kyle Duncan? They can't create chances
Kyle
without
Duncan's
Kyle
a nice
Duncan.
player, but literally, what did I just say? The best that Philly chances they created were through Kai Wagner and Paxton Aronson down the left side. He's an inconsistent defender. He's fun going forward, and I think there's still space for him to improve as a player, but I don't think he was an elite right wing back for this team. And you mentioned a couple other people where they'll lose Gutman. I think Tolkien's a better player than him. That's fine. Also, remember, Aaron Long will come back. And we don't know where he'll be, but he was the MLS Defender of the Year that they lost. Sean Nealis stepped in and did a reasonable job, but he is the best player on this roster, hands down, not at every position. So
Can
you
you
get
win
stuff from Aaron Long next
Can you
year.
win? Can you win? Can you finish higher than 7th in the East if Aaron Long is the best player on your roster? Isn't that?
I don't know.
Isn't that the question that we've been asking about
But-
the Red Bulls for a long time?
But I think the Red Bulls would tell you that they think next year Patrick Klamala will be better, and they think next year Drew Yearwood will be better, and next year they think Omir Fernandez can be better, and if Casares comes back, they really like Wiki Carmona. I think the idea for the Red Bulls was on a rebuild. It wasn't we're rebuilding to win MLS Cup year one, and they have started the process here, and there are a lot of pieces and a lot of ideas that should improve as you go forward, and so there is a launching pad to say, this is what we want next year to look like. And now there is, I think, a little bit of credit from the fan base where they have some space to do that. Where if they hadn't made the playoff run, the whole offseason would have been announce. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I think they've earned themselves a little bit of breathing space there.
All right, season over for the Red Bulls. We were going to save these previews for later in the show, but it doesn't make any sense to. We just talked about the matchup for the Union, so let's see who it might be. Nashville, Orlando City get a start on Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, FS1, Fox Deportes. You're not going to be shocked what the season series is, guys. 3 games since the 18th of August. What do you think they are?
Draw.
All draws. Nothing but draws. The last one, look, Orlando thinks it shouldn't have been a draw.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there.
I would have to.
Yeah, I would
agree with that.
I would agree with that too. Even though I guess
Yeah,
I'm
but it
wearing
wasn't. It was a draw
Nashville colours.
because that's the fate. That's the fate of all these matches. A draw, of course, will take us extra time, maybe PKs in this sense. We're playing in Nashville. What's the narrative here? What's the story, Doyle? If somebody came to you and said, "Why should I tune in on Tuesday night? What's going to be exciting? What are the things that are going to lock me in?" What would you say about this game?
I mean, these two teams have earned their way into the playoffs for the second straight year. And then the other thing is, like, if you look at that last game, it was Halloween. It was the week before decision day. That was an exciting game, and it was a really controversial game. And there's likely to be some bad blood. And if you have all of that going into a one and done playoff scenario, I mean, if you're not sold already, I guess you're probably not going to watch it, but you should.
And look, if you like stars, they're there. They've rested Nani, have Orlando City. He should be back. At what capacity? Not sure. Daryl DK, we had a big debate on Twitter about the Young Player of the Year, and Daryl DK didn't even come into that debate once. And this is a guy that basically took over the championship for the first half of the year, came back to MLS, had his ups and downs with injuries, and still scored 10 goals and seems to be in form right now. And that's on the visiting team. Hani Mukhtar is probably the number 2 contender for the MVP in the entire league. I don't think anybody had more goals and assists combined than Hani Mukhtar. He is pure magic. The best defender in Major League Soccer, in my opinion, is Alistair Johnson. No, I'm just kidding. But, he's a really good player.
Really good.
Walker
Really
Zimmerman.
good.
I mean, we put Godoy on our best 11. Anibal Godoy. He's been an absolute dog this year. Like, these are 2 really, really, really good teams with really good players. neither of whom have ever won MLS Cup. Of course, Nashville are early in their lifespan, and Orlando City had a tough early go in theirs. But, like, Orlando was supposed to be better this year. I think we would all agree with that. Nashville met their expectations, maybe exceeded them, but still has some issues winning games. But they haven't lost at home. I mean, there's just a lot going into this one, a lot of storylines being woven together. Let's get to the protagonists and who's doing the weaving. Dave, start us out. Who's your guy? Who are you watching?
I mean, it comes down to Hani Mukhtar. He's the difference maker for Nashville. He's the one who turns draws into wins if they're going to have that be the case. And I think this is an Orlando team that, depending on who plays in central midfield, it should probably be Andres Pereira and Jegson Mendez. It has not always been. I think then there's space for Mukhtar to find the game and space for him to attack the center backs who have struggled down the stretch over the course of the season. So he's the one you're looking at. Decision day, he scores basically an Olympico from a free kick. Like, he's done it in every way now over the course of this season, and he's the biggest star power. And if he gets open and running, I think the game will open up, and it'll give space for Orlando too as well. Because you guys mentioned the wild game before decision day. These two teams played 2-2 in Nashville, and Orlando scored in the 93rd minute on an own goal, and in the 77th minute to make it 2-1. That game was off the charts bonkers, and then they one-upped it the next time they met up, so now they have to do it again.
That was Kalen's protagonist. Don't even worry about it.
I thought I was supposed to pick one.
Yeah, you did, but you picked Daryl DK before we did the show.
I'll take DK.
Sorry, I thought we were doing
today.
the...
He's just fired up, so he take what
he
you
just
need.
rolls right into it.
I got curveball there. I thought we were doing the thing we did last week.
Honestly, the shows where Goss hasn't even stared at the rundown are the best anyways,
Yeah, it's
right?
perfect.
You want to just let him fly.
Exactly. Let him play, man. Let him feel
I don't
the
watch
game.
tape. I'm not a tape guy. I just go in and I play pickup.
All right, give us the Daryl
I'll take
DK side.
DK.
Yeah.
Yeah, the DK one is interesting because I think in some ways he kind of was forgotten a little bit. I think because I think so much of sort of the way we talk about players ends up coming around the national team, especially this year. And I think some of it was, is he going to be step into this number 9 void in the way that we ended up seeing Ricardo Pepi step in, and it just didn't really happen for him. And I think that was due to a number of reasons. One, I think, he wasn't fully fit. I think he was also a part of a much different year as far as not getting a break, going to the championship, playing that way, then being a part of all these rumors of whether he, or transfer links to how much money and to which Big Five club. And that's a lot for a young player to sort of manage. And I always said forget about the national team for a little while once, that didn't quite work out for him at this point. I think he still will have a role to play. I hope he has a big role to play in the future. I think we all do. But I said, go back and focus on your club football and just focus on being in Orlando. It's in a circumstance and a format that the manager, you have a great relationship, you have the trust of your team. And he's taken a lot. He's shouldered a lot more as the season has gone on. Even if you look down towards the big matches, decision day, up in Montreal where they're sort of needing to play for their lives, and he was mixing it up, getting goals. He's really gotten himself into a good run of form. And yeah, Nani, I think, will always grab a lot of the attention and the headlines, but sometimes in the playoffs, Nani has not been able to find, the big moments or those matches to be able to kind of really carry this team to the next round. I think DK raises the ceiling of this team to another level where they can actually look at making a run towards MLS Cup. But Orlando is just, if you're selling the game, going back to it, Orlando just in general, if you want to sell the game, you almost don't even need to mention Nashville, although you should, because they're a fun team to watch and I love Hani Mukhtar. But Orlando in the playoff, Schlegel, just the madness that happened last year, then going down to it seems like the last 5-10 minutes of any Orlando match is just mayhem. And sometimes that can turn into really good things. And they've often found, I think, especially around in knockout rounds and that type of, I think they're a tough team when it comes to this. I've picked Nashville to win MLS Cup. I think they could also lose in the first round. So it's a kind of on a knife's edge, and because they play such tight games, I think that could suit them well if they do end up getting further on into the tournament. But it also makes them vulnerable to, DK, especially having just a blinder of a game or imposing his will in this one. So, but yeah, that'd be the case. I think DK is he's taking a big role with this team.
My protagonist of the game is Kalen because he can take the ball under pressure unexpectedly and still make something great happen.
I do like the playoffs.
Which Nani we getting, Doyle?
Yeah, I mean that's the story of the game from an Orlando City perspective, and like honestly, this 90 minutes could go a long way towards determining how Nani is remembered in that Orlando City fan base, because we've seen it three times now. The first half of the year, he's one of the best players in the league. I mean, literally last year at MLS is back, he was the second best player in the league behind Sebastian Blanco. He was amazing in that tournament, but he's an older DP, and he has never really seemed to adjust to the summer heat, and he has run out of gas in August each season that he's been in MLS, and like in the past, it was like sort of a slow decline. This year, he fell off a cliff. He's got like 1 goal, 2 assists over the past 3 months. He needs a big game. Orlando City are not, like, if you look at them on paper, you think this team could win MLS Cup, but if you look at the way they've played, they have not looked like that even once this year, I don't think. And if they're going to start looking like that, Nani is going to have to be the guy he was in the first half of the year. But this is what we said last year at this time, and he was not great in the playoffs. In fact, I mean, the thing we remember most from Nani in the playoffs last year is the penalty miss. And obviously,
I mostly remember him getting beasted by Tejan personally.
That too. And of course, 2 years ago, he faded down the stretch as Orlando City faded down the stretch, and they missed the playoffs. So this is a chance for him to sort of stamp his name on this era and be like, look, obviously it's before and after Oscar Pereira and before and after Daryl DK, but I was the big name DP who was really the foundational guy that this was built around. And in order to, I think, go down in club lore as that kind of guy, he's got to have a big game. And he hasn't had a big game in 3.5 months. And so it's, hopefully the rest did him well. He is, like, in terms of variance, in terms of productivity and just level of play on the field, based upon the amount of time the player has been rested, I think Nani is like the highest variance player in the league. If you give him 3 weeks off, he comes out and he looks amazing. But if you ask him to play back to back to back to back, he just hasn't been able to do it. So if you're an Orlando City fan, the hope has to be that like this break, and he didn't play on decision day either. He hasn't played since Halloween. The hope is that this break means he's got his legs back under him, and that they're going to get to see the guy who was so great last summer at MLS's back.
Pretty incredible work by Oscar Pereira to keep him out over that time, because Nani wants to play. How do we know? The man was literally chomping at the bit to be in the skills challenge when he was carrying a knock. That's how you know he wants to be on the field. He'll be fresh here. You talk about sort of the legacy and the build. Well, I think Walker Zimmerman is that guy for Nashville. If you look at their life as an MLS club, like, it's based in large part around Walker, around what that trade meant to the team, what that foundation has been and how they've been able to build off it. I know Hani Mukhtar's done his thing this year and it's been incredible, but I still think Walker Zimmerman is the sort of shining light within the club, and he's going to be huge in this match because Orlando City are good on set pieces. Going both ways. He's an absolute monster. Defensively, can he keep DK, Antonio Carlos, those guys from getting space and scoring? Can he get a goal? Because Nashville need to get the first goal. They've played from behind a lot, and this kind of pushes it into the matchup and the tactics. They've played from behind a lot. At home this year, they've played from behind, and they've come back a lot. They haven't lost a match in Nashville, but the stat from Ben Wright over at Speedway Soccer is that basically 50% of home matches, they've gone down first, or they've played from behind at some point. That's a crazy stat to then not have lost any of those games. I've been saying over and over with this team, like, the draws are fine, they're accumulating points, but in the playoffs, you just open up the door for opponents. You give them an opportunity, and if you want to advance, you want to minimize those opportunities. Dave, where do you see this game sort of tactically playing out? What are you watching on that front?
Well, for Nashville, I think their ability to create opportunities with their wingbacks, and that's where they've been so good. And they have a few different options that they can play along the back line, but you assume it's Johnston on the right wing back and Daniel Lovitz, who is one of the top chance creators in the league, at left wing back. And so Can they get forward and create chances? Huan, as talented as he is, it's more going forward than defensive. And then there's been question marks at left back over the course of the season for Orlando City. And when you've seen Nashville at home at their best, which has, as you said many times, been from behind, where it's like, let's throw caution to the wind and get after it. It's when those wing backs are high up the field and whipping in crosses, or pullbacks to Mukhtar or Leal, whoever's making that run. So can you see Nashville play that way with some level of composure, not from behind, but from the start? And I think if they can get up on Orlando early, as you said, and sort of like dictate the tempo of this game and dictate the intensity of this game, then this can be a game that Nashville could sort of start to squeeze the life out of Orlando City. The longer you leave Orlando City alive, the longer there is for their chaos, which sometimes works out for them, to come into the game and be a factor. So that's what I'm looking out for from Nashville, is just how aggressive is Gary Smith from the lineup into the opening 10, 15 minutes.
How about the Orlando side? What?
They have to stop Hani Mukhtar. If they, he scored in each of their last 2 matches against Orlando, and when he's been effective against them, if he gets pushed further on into one-on-one situations or 2-on-2 situations with CJ Sapong against Janssen and Antonio Carlos, their mobility, their skill is going to cause problems for those two to keep up with them. If it turns into sort of he gets in between those spots, that's where they're going to cause problems. So Mendez and Urso are going to have to really keep an eye on him and be physical. Play him. Everything should be. That's a part of this at this time of the year, and we'll see this with Carlos Hill. We'll see this throughout, especially these kind of playmaking, deep lying players, or even players like Hani, who's a little bit more further in the attack. Is you have to be physical. You have to keep him facing his own direction. Allowing him to get faced up is going to be a problem. So I think stopping Mukhtar, you give yourself a chance, and then set pieces as well. If you can stop Mukhtar and you can stop set pieces, you give yourself a chance.
Can I bring up the point I made going into decision day for Orlando, which is right now you're getting almost nothing offensively from Mauricio Pereira. And if that's the case, why not start Andres Pereira and play Urso, Mendez, and him, and just win midfield and say, we've got Nani, we've got Mueller or Vanderwater or Benji Michel, we've got DK, who has not just, as Kalen said, not just scored, but creates chances now when he can get isolated wide of the box. And we've got our fullbacks. And we're going on the road, and we're going to not lose, and we're not going to lose central midfield. And then maybe in the 55th, 60th minute, then we make a different decision. So it hasn't happened. Andres Pereira, remember, came on at halftime against Montreal. And no, Jackson Mendez is not going to score an absurd goal in this game, but I think it still gives more help to their center backs and more license in midfield.
All right, predictions. Don't give me the long-winded one here. Home team, away team. It's been all home teams, Doyle. You going against the grain?
I'm going to say this one goes to penalties. And in penalties, Orlando City did it once last year. Orlando City's going to do it again.
Schlegel magic.
Schlegel magic.
We got an away team. I'm taking the home team. I'm taking Nashville. I think they've learned their lessons here, and I just think with Hani on form and the defense that they have, I don't think they'll come out and play this game in an expansive way. I think they'll sort of rely on difference makers through the last half hour. So I think Orlando is going to end their journey here, and Nani won't get that special game. Nashville, move on.
I'm going Nashville as well. My bracket really needs them too. But I do think Orlando, I like I said, Orlando could definitely win this game. Yeah. And if it goes later on, Gallese on penalties, I think would be strong. But I worry a little bit about Orlando, and I know a little bit more of what I can expect from Nashville. And for me, that's a formula I would if I'm going to pick between the two, I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go with Nashville.
Dave?
If I pick someone in my bracket already, do I have to just keep picking them?
I mean, it's up to you. You could switch it up. You're not going to get credit. You're going to get and there's no extra credit for you at that point.
All right, I'll take Nashville as of now. I originally picked Orlando.
You didn't sound very excited about that.
It's just like begrudgingly.
I'm picking against myself.
That's fair. 3-1 on Nashville for us. TBD as to what that means.
Yeah, true.
That's fair. Let's talk Sporting KC Vancouver real quick. Doyle, just take us through the game plan from Peter Vermees, because I really thought that outside of Graham Zusi, that this was the story, because it was the game plan that helped unlock Zusi's capabilities in the game. This was really special stuff from Peter Vermees.
It was. You usually don't see Sporting KC dominate games like this. They are, notoriously a front foot pressing team. Peter Vermees is the man who introduced the concept of pressing to MLS. He's won multiple U.S. Open Cups, with this pressing scheme. Obviously, 2013 MLS Cup with it, and through that pressing, they have also become one of the best possession teams in MLS because they win the ball and then they recycle the ball. It's not the type of vertical, get everything vertical, smash, Red Bull type all-out press that we've kind of gotten used to. It's a little bit different, and it's served Sporting Kansas City really, really well. And so I was shocked to see them draw a low line of confrontation, and it was kind of like a bunker and counter performance, a little bit reminiscent of that 2018 Atlanta United team, which is, of course, one of the best pressing teams in the league that year. But Tata Martino went away from it for the playoffs and said, we're just going to hit you guys on the break. Come on upfield, try to possess against us, and we're going to use that space in behind to rip you apart. And that is what Sporting Kansas City did to Vancouver. They dropped their line of confrontation to midfield. They have between Kyrie Shelton, Johnny Russell, and Daniel Shallowy, they have three guys who could really run up top. And then in Graham Zusi, he hits the best switch in league history. And so the story of the first half, really the story of the whole game, was that anytime Zusi got on the ball, he was just hitting that long diagonal to Daniel Shallowy, and it was on every single time. And so, this was a dominant performance from Sporting Kansas City in a way that we don't see Sporting dominate. And hat tip to Peter Vermees. I really didn't know he had it in him for a postseason game, but he clearly did, and it served this team well.
Yeah, we made a lot of assumptions about how this was going to go down and how maybe it would suit the Caps in that sense. They want to be on the break. They want to play against the ball a little bit. Well, they got flipped on them. I just want to ask this question. It might be a stupid one. You guys might groan. You might say, that's too surface level. But you heard Kyrie Shelton afterwards in particular say that he took offense to Vanni Sartini's comments. You saw Peter Vermees say a little bit of something about it, but he didn't mention Vanni by name. Kaylin, do you think Vanni Sartini, was it a mistake what he said? Should he not have done that? Do you think that had any effect on this game at all?
I think it did, but I don't think he should have not made the comments. In fact, I love the comments. I thought, that I've just enjoyed everything like we all have of Vanni Sartini and just the way he's brought this personality to his team and a sense of belief. Now, I'm also not surprised to see Sporting Kansas City take that personally. And I think once you get to this time of year, you're looking for anything, right? You've already got the motivation, right? But I think for the Sporting team, if you think about what they had sort of been through, they were on edge. They'd lost the last 3 games of the season. They were complaining about referee decisions. They were complaining about kind of, they just felt like a little bit like they were, I don't know, they had a chip on their shoulder. And that's the way this Peter Vermees is. That's the way that Sporting Kansas City team is. So then when you see this manager come out and, yeah, we're all enjoying the kind of magic of Sartini and all this incredible stuff, and rightly so, because he's done a fantastic job with Vancouver. But I think it was a little bit for a Sporting team that has the personality and the players that they have of a Roger Espinoza or Kyrie Shelton or Graham Susie, or players that have been there and done that for a long time now. You're sitting there being like, all right, you guys are you're going to win. You just feel that good about playing and coming down to Kansas City and playing. And so the interesting part for me is that seems like a more of an idea where go out and press and really take it to them. And they kind of did the opposite. And we're like, all right, you guys want to be the aggressors. You think you're the better team. Come to us. Come, here's the ball. Sporting only had 37% of the ball at home. That's crazy to me because I've spent feels like decades chasing them without the ball in Kansas City. But I think, using that type of fuel can add a little bit to a team. And I think Peter Vermees understands that. And, even in his post-game interview, he sort of tried to parse his words carefully to be like, hey, the guys took it personally, as if he had no problem. And I also don't think that he may not have needed it, because I think a lot of that team in general, I think feels a little bit overlooked.
The whole club.
And
Forget just the team. The whole club feels that way. So you were playing into an existing feeling that has been there, not just this year, but for decades probably.
MLS Digital literally
like
MLS Digital sent Andrew Wiebe back out to Sporting Kansas City to live there, because Kansas City is like the most important soccer city in the United States.
And then I haven't even gone to one training session. I've been to one game
as a tribute.
2 games actually. We don't count wings.
It's like when royal families organize marriages for their kids to create some form of alliance. We sent Andrew Wiebe.
I mean, I've played on teams like that. You know,
the Dynamo hated me too. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, when you and Simon Borg would come out for the first time.
See? I told
playoff time.
I told you.
And it wouldn't even be there for the first round. It'd be there for, like, the conference final where you, like, had to come. And then you're like, all right, like, MLSsoccer.com's in the house. What's up?
Yep,
like, that's something a team can use, though, to say people aren't believing us. And I think, like, if you follow this formula forward, if they go on the road next match or if they play at home, that type of formula, like to Doyle's point, as far as Atlanta United, that just works in the playoffs, especially if you have the pieces to get out in the break. And that Atlanta United team had the pieces to hurt with limited numbers on counterattack in those opportunities. I think this, if you look at Johnny Russell, his second half, and Daniel Shalaway, what a year he's had, and Kyrie Shelton, who's just like a unique player that just causes so many matchup problems and does so much dirty work for that team. That's a formula I think could take them pretty deep.
Wait, I know Anders wants us to fly forward, but we do have to say we have celebrated Vinny Sartini for 2.5 months. He said after this game he got it wrong. He should not have started Andy Rose. He should not have started Marcus Godinho. It may not have mattered because of the way Seattle played, but look at those sideline to sideline crosses that created the way they created those goals. And look at Andy Rose hasn't started a game in a month and a half, and Godinho started like 4 all year. Now, I understand Ranko was injured, but you had other options. So we have celebrated Vanni Sartini fairly continuously, and this is not a reason to throw him down a drain, but we have to mention he got his personnel wrong in this matchup.
It did seem like a strange time to make those changes.
I mean,
Hand, there was an injury consideration.
Hand was forced by injury, but that is, I think, flipping the page to 2022 with this Vancouver team, filling out more of the roster with guys who can play in this type of game is going to be one of the offseason priorities. I like their spine. You know, like Brian White kind of came out of nowhere, but also he's the same guy who had 10 goals in 2019 for the Red Bulls in limited minutes. So he's been productive before. Ryan Gauld certainly looks the part. I thought Caio Alexandre was very good this year before he got hurt and was gone for the second half of the season. Christian Dahome had a much better second year. Diber Caicedo looks like a very good young player. So they have a lot of, I think, guys who could be top-end talent, maybe not MVP caliber, but guys who wouldn't shock you entirely if they, made one of our best 11 teams next year, 4th team best 11 as presented by Continental Tires on Extra Time.
If you can't make it into the top 5, and then go back to the drawing board.
But they have a lot of guys like that. I think their depth needs addressing. I think that Vanni Sartini is going to be the guy on the sidelines for next year to help try to weave all of that together, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to a Vancouver Whitecaps team. That's like I've looked forward to individual players in the past. I am looking forward to a Vancouver Whitecaps team, and I think that makes this year a victory for Vancouver, even though they went down in flames completely this past weekend.
Well said. Well said. We'll do the preview here because we know Sporting Kansas City are going to get either the Sounders or Real Salt Lake. That's the nightcap on Tuesday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, this is a FS1 and Fox Deportes doubleheader. Nashville and Orlando start it. Seattle and RSL end it. Season series here, it's a split. Wins for both teams. Seattle won early in the year. RSL won late in the year when Freddie Juarez came back to Salt Lake. I think that was a 1-0 win, maybe 2-1. Either way, the narrative here, I think that's one of the big ones. The narrative for RSL is nobody believed in us, and there's a lot of teams that have kind of rallied around that one. But
it's in the song.
It's basically true. Nobody believed in RSL, and here they are. They had a coach leave them. They haven't had an owner. They have had to just sort of pick it up by themselves and carry it along, and they did so with I'm not going to say a miracle on decision day, but given all the events around it,
They're not
it was
calling
probably
it
close to one.
A miracle. They're calling it the miracle. Get it? Because it was Demir. Yeah, I didn't make that up. That's someone else's dad joke. But I mean, that's your wheelhouse right there, Weeby.
I really feel
Important
honestly
to credit dad jokes on this show.
Yeah, I feel less than right now because I didn't come up with that. But it is neither here nor there. Seattle Sounders on the other side, they've been sort of like in this period of like, hey, we're really good, but Nico Lodeiro, but Jordan Morris, but Steph Fry, and they've had those guys trickle back in. It looks like Raul Diaz is fine, and he, of course, is the playoff assassin. Jordan Morris is going to be off the bench. Steph Fry's back in goal. Nico Lodeiro is TBD. We're not sure exactly what role he will play, but we know the Sounders are MLS Cup contenders. Now's their time of year. Time to prove it. Time to show us, and if they do win, we get Sporting Kansas City Sounders in Seattle, which is going to be an absolute treat given what's happened with them toward the end of this season. Like a little bit of, I don't know, AEW, a little WWE,
be a
if you
Raw
want to go
game.
that way. Yeah, Raw, yeah, for sure. Protagonists, again, we all pick one here, Dave. Do you want me to tell you who you picked, or...
Did I pick one?
You picked two. Just feel it. Let it come to you here.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to go first?
Sure.
The problem is you list me as third, so if you come to me first, you're already throwing me off.
Wow, really going in deep on the rundown here.
I'll pick Carlos Vela for this one. Can I just do whatever I want?
No. Oh my god.
I picked Nico Lodeiro and Jordan Morris. I think when you look at the floor of these teams, Seattle, if they play the way that they can play, should win. The question right now is, what are you going to get from Nico and Jordan to get to your ceiling? And you mentioned it's their time of year. I agree with you. I think that this is a strong Seattle group. This is how they can get stronger. So you'd expect Jordan off the bench, 30, 35 minutes. That's super dangerous. If it's Nico Lodeiro from the start, that could be huge. And so I think if you're a Seattle fan, that's sort of the first thing you're looking for is when that lineup drops an hour before the game.
Well, there is but one name, though.
Yeah.
Come playoff time.
Raul Diaz.
Right?
Yeah. 9 goals, 6 assists in 959 career playoff minutes. That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. He has been, just in terms of per 90, he has been the best striker in MLS postseason history. And he's done it in leading a team to MLS Cup, to an MLS Cup win. He did it in getting Seattle to MLS Cup last year. David makes a good point about Morris and especially Lodeiro needing to get healthy in order for this team to find its absolute ceiling. But if they're just playing the way they have been and they have Raul Diaz out there, I don't think they need to hit their ceiling in order to beat RSL at home. And I guess I just gave them some bulletin board material, so there you go, boys. But no disrespect to RSL, but Seattle's at a different level, and they have been for half a decade. And if they're at just that level, plus Raul Diaz, they are prohibitive favorites in this game. And the tactics don't even, I don't want to say they don't matter, but they matter so much less than the talent differential. Raul Diaz is going to score in this game. It's what he does. And for Seattle at home, if he's scoring, I don't really see a path here for RSL. And that's the show.
Path.
And that's the show. That's it.
Give me that path, Kalen.
Well, the path is, how many times has RSL heard that? That's what they've heard the entirety of this season, and saying they're definitely not going to make the playoffs. They're in the playoffs. They're lost a manager. They don't have an owner. Now they're going against their former manager. He even knows all the ins and outs of their team and each player, and so that's another advantage for Seattle. And so it's oh wow, what are you going to do? You're going to go. This team continues to go to the final after final. But this RSL team, I think, kind of likes that. And if you look at, even the way they've gone in the past, knocking out that wonderful LAFC team on a game in the playoffs that nobody expected to, with that, I think that was the
karate kick,
sort of karate kick goal
2018
from Damir Kreilach. And that's my protagonist of the match. I mean, he just has done it time and time again. I think. I don't know if he's going to make best 11. I don't know if he's going to be. He wasn't in our top best 11, right? I think
we had him second team.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Good. So even on the best 11, they're getting doubted, right? But Damir Kreilach has, on decision day, he just always seems to find that important goal for this team. And I think the biggest question for me and the path forward is, do they open things up? And because we've seen last year, even FC Dallas went up to Seattle, or I think it was last year, I've lost track of the years, but they really went like toe-to-toe with Seattle and tried to play him. And that was really surprising from Luchi Gonzalez, and it caused problems for Seattle. But Salt Lake cannot go up there and do that. I just think that that's probably not the right formula for them. When they've opened things up and stretched it, it's gotten really tough. The path is more what we saw from Decision Day, going to Sporting Kansas City, playing defensive-minded first and waiting for your opportunity and finding a special moment, or hoping that your players like Rusnak or Damir Krylak can find a moment in the box to get on the right side of things. So I think I think Seattle is clear favorites, but that might be a position where Salt Lake feels, they don't really have a ton to lose at this point. A lot to win, particularly for the manager. Mastroeni has a lot on the line as well, but he's done a good job to get this team to this point.
He's going to be my protagonist here, Pablo, because though I think his lineup decisions, particularly in formation, are going to dictate a lot. They were in more of like a 4-back system here against Kansas City, and were more locked down defensively, but it seems like when they go into that 5-back, they can be opened up, especially when the fullbacks get forward, if it's Brody and Herrera. How do you think Pablo Mastroeni approaches this match?
I think you just got to keep your lines tight against Seattle. RSL were much more fun to watch under Pablo Mastroeni than they were under Freddie Juarez. And part of that was opening the game up and being a little bit freewheeling. It was complete opposite of how his old Rapids teams used to play. But the downside of that is if you open the game up and you play a little bit freewheeling, you can get gashed in transition going in the other direction. And if you're doing that against Seattle, in Seattle, they're going to score 6. So I don't know. Well, I got a fire truck going by, so I'll let you guys pick.
So can I just, for an example of what Doyle's talking about, you mentioned RSL beat Seattle 1-0 at home in September. It was a midweek game. The game before that, they beat San Jose 4-3. The game after that, they lost to Portland 6-1. That's what RSL has been under Pablo Mastroeni, and it's absolute chaos. And as Doyle said, it's hard to see the path forward if you do that against Seattle. FC Dallas did it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right, to open that playoff game, that 3-3 game. This is a better Seattle team right now, and it's a team that has a stronger tactical identity, and that identity fits perfectly into opening up the game, transition moments. If RSL goes 5 in the back, and they mirror that perfectly. So I just think it's tough to see that path forward for RSL. And so then you go to Decision Day, SKC, you close things down. And you've mentioned it a couple times, Weeby, but Justin Meerum off the bench late in games. On Anderson Julio, we voted as our ETR, Ilsinho bench player of the year. Like, they've got difference makers if they can get late into the game and keep it nervy. And so you'd hope to see Marcelo Silva get the start, no Eric Holt, because he's been kind of a bearer of bad news for them. You need a solid performance from Davide Ochoa. I don't think it needs to be special, but you can't have mistakes. You can't have balls dropping between the lines. You can't be disorganized on set pieces. If you can do that and be alive in the 65th minute, then this is a RSL team that has a history now of winning in dramatic late games.
I would take the 4-3-3 that they sort of played against Kansas City and just keep it rolling with Glad and Silva and Ruiz and Rusnak in the midfield, and then Menendez and Rubin and Kralak up top. Like, just stick with it, in my opinion. Don't change it up, because we've seen how they go back and forth. They waffle from truly effective to truly entertaining for everybody but their own fans who are tearing their hair out. Give me some predictions here. Anybody going to take RSL?
Not
and if we don't, isn't that perfect for RSL? Like, they don't want you to like. Why would they want you to believe in them at this point? You know what I mean? Like, why? They've done it all without anybody believing. Like, this is just status quo for them. Like, if I'm them, I want that. I'm like, yeah, count us out. Count us out. Give us that edge. Them,
Seattle not having that health and having some question marks around those guys does. You want to play them first, because if they get Jordan Morris some more match minutes, I know he's been training for a while, but getting more match minutes in the playoffs, you get Ladero getting more match minutes. Rui Diaz has, kind of been out and now coming back in. Now is the time if you're going to strike. I would worry more about the Seattle team as the playoffs build. So I think, if you're going to take them out, you hope, like last year I said the same thing about LAFC, where they were trying to get everybody healthy in a rush at the end, and it just was not going to work against a fit Sounders team. That's the vulnerability for the Sounders is more their availability and health for RSL, but I'm still taking Seattle at home. I think it would be a shocking result if Real Salt Lake. I think, clearly there haven't been any upsets so far, and this would be the biggest. By
far. I'm taking Sounders, too, for all the reasons that they've shown us over the course of the year. Anybody want RSL? Are we just going to say Sounders across the board? And
chalk.
It is as it always was. There it is. All right, let's keep it rolling on this show and look to Sunday's action. We will not have opponents for that just yet. NYCFC Atlanta, although I guess we do know NYCFC is taking on the Revs. That's a great matchup. I said it beforehand. Atlanta fans.
That's next Tuesday.
Yeah, that's Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I'm saying the game's on Sunday. Yeah, no, that's way down the line still. The Revs are just posted up waiting. I said before this Atlanta NYCFC game that Atlanta they haven't shown us anything in the last month. They haven't shown an ability to take advantage of their talent. They haven't shown us ability to get out in transition and be dangerous. They just haven't really shown any consistent chance creation whatsoever. And they were pretty disconnected, I thought, in this match, whether it be from midfield to that front line or just to Joseph Martinez in general. Like, they never got him into the game whatsoever, and he was maybe the flip side goes for him as well, as he never got into the game. And NYCFC, despite the absences, just looked like the more aggressive, up-for-it team, and they had ideas. Doyle, they had ideas about how they wanted to attack, and they had some luck because Atlanta just turned off.
Yeah,
Tati's goal that bounces a million feet into the air on the set piece where they're just sort of watching things happen. I mean, one team seemed to want it more than the other. I don't want to go with that cliche, but it felt that way.
It did to a degree. I mean, I do want to give Atlanta some credit because in the pregame, when talking about Gonzalo Pineda had said we want to play through NYCFC's press. We want to get on the ball and use our possession to break them down. We thought they were just going to get slaughtered. We all thought that this was going to be 3-4-0. And to be fair, it maybe could have ended up that way, but Atlanta was cleaner with the ball, breaking the first line of pressure and getting into central midfield. They didn't put themselves in a lot of bad spots. It's just once they got to central midfield, they weren't able to do anything against NYCFC. It was just a masterful defensive performance from NYCFC, and going forward, I didn't think NYCFC was particularly good at all. You said they had ideas. I didn't see that. I saw this as just NYCFC being extremely resolute defensively and good on set pieces, which is that's usually the way they lose in the playoffs. So to see them actually win a playoff game, it was a lot like Sporting Kansas City. They had 40% possession. You don't expect that from NYCFC, and you don't necessarily expect them to be the more mature team in a playoff game, but they certainly were in this one, and it's a playoff win, so it's a great win. And I think that it showed that they have a lot of the answers defensively without Keaton Parks and Anton Tinnerholm. Attack-wise, though, they didn't look great. They're going to have to be a lot better up in Foxborough going forward if they're going to advance past the Revs.
I agree with Doyle.
Dyla did a good job on set pieces. Just actually breaking down those goals. The near post was, Atlanta was allowing just the ball on the ground to come out. So they play it short. Atlanta was completely unaware. The ball comes out to the point where Maxi's able to roll the ball with the bottom of his foot and then serve a ball to the back post, where Tati, the MLS Golden Boot winner, is just hanging out at the back corner of the back six. And he sort of mishits it a little bit, but knocks it down into the ground and it goes in. And then on the other one, it's Barco who loses Maxi Morales again. And you're not expected in that moment to do much, right? Maxi's not exactly the key for set pieces, but he is, because you just need to stay in front of him. And Barco takes a risk to look for the counter, and then everybody's flat-footed on the rebound as well. So that near post spot from Atlanta was just completely wide open, and then it sort of isolated players where once it started to react, it opened up everything in the back post as well as runners coming in the box. So set pieces really did Atlanta United in, and also I thought Sean Johnson and the back line, Sean came up with a couple of big saves in net, and the back line held strong.
I was going to say I agreed with Doyle that while NYCFC wasn't great, the things they did well are things they normally struggle with, and that's positive. But for Atlanta, none of that was on Gonzalo Pineda. I thought the two worst players on the field were Luis Araujo and Joseph Martinez. If that's the case, they're never going to win a game. They were so disconnected, and then you're disconnected. When do you come and find the game? And they just never did. They were never able to. Joseph got the 1/2 chance. I mean, if you're bringing Jurgen Damm or Jake Mulroney in for Luis Araujo to change it up, like, you're in trouble as a club and as a group. And so for Atlanta going forward, you need those two guys to be better next year, and that's kind of where they stand, right? If Joseph can get back to who he was, they're a team that will contend at the top of the Eastern Conference. If he can't, there's probably some trouble. We assume Barco is gone, so they can make pieces fit together a little bit better under Gonzalo Pineda. But I think Franco came along fairly well. He looked really comfortable on the ball in this game. They'll get Gutman back on loan, and if Bello does leave, that'll be the replacement there. So that sort of makes sense. Sosa and Ibarra are young players that gain confidence, and they finally got Rossetto on the field. So a lot for Atlanta, I think, is in place, and you see that in Carlos Bocanegra getting the extension. He, Darren Eales, and Gonzalo Pineda are there for the long term now, so there's a belief that the core is there. It's not blow it up in rebuild time, but they've got to find the way to get the best out of Moreno and the best out of Araujo with whatever the group looks like under Gonzalo Pineda next year.
Sure looks like Thiago Almada will be among those in that group. TBD on Miles Robinson. Maybe somebody comes in the winter and makes a big offer, but that'll be a huge loss for Atlanta. Their season ends after an up-and-down regular season. The Gabriel Heinze era seems sort of like ancient history at this point. Rob Valentino, Gonzalo Pineda, dragging them back into the playoffs, but they never really did beat good teams all year long, and they didn't beat a good team in NYCFC in this one at Yankee Stadium. NYCFC will go to, as I said, the Revs. We'll talk about that later because it's still way on down the line. Portland beat Minnesota. We talked about that one a little bit with Sebastian Blanco. Anything you guys want to dig into on that one more? Or is that just sort of like this is what we sort of expected from Minnesota because this is what they've been all year long, which is pretty inconsistent despite the talent level.
Yeah, but let me start with Portland first. Like the fact that they gave up what was a gorgeous team goal to Minnesota and were down 1-0 at home. When you look at their recent playoff history, when you look at since 2015, they only had that one playoff run in 2018. Like they lost in the first round last year when they gave up a lead at home. They lost, I think, 2 years ago again at RSL in the playoffs. They've had some bad beats. They lost to Houston at home in 2017. So for them to go down 1-0 and still bounce back and just control the final 70 minutes of that game, that was impressive, I think, mentally from this team. And that comes from having a fully healthy Sebastian Blanco and Diego Chara still playing like he's 25, even though he's 35. And I thought Lloris Mabiala had a big game as well. Even aside from the goal, he was just a monster in the air, and I thought pretty good on the ground. And when Mabiala is pretty good on the ground and Chara's doing Chara things in front of him, it's a tough team to beat.
Put a bow on it for Minnesota. Who wants it? Kalen, Dave, you want me to jump in here?
I think Charlie's actually knocking on the door.
Yeah, Charlie's about
hold on. He's trying to bust in right here.
Kool-Aid Man style. I'll do it. Like, they underachieved, man. Like, this team with Babello Reynoso is one of the best players in the league, and it's a high-powered, quality attack. Robin Lod, Franco Fragapane, who might be a questionable individual, but certainly is a very good soccer player. And then, like, Ozzy Alonso, the entire second half of the season looked like young Ozzy Alonso. So they had a lot of the pieces in place to make a real run. And they went out there in this game, and they just weren't up for it. At no point did it look like they were putting, maybe the first 10, 15 minutes. But after that, they just weren't putting out playoff caliber energy. And we saw it on the second Blanco goal. Like, you're letting the best player in the playoffs waltz on, like, nobody got within 15 yards of him, and he's walking right into zone 14, which is insane. So that speaks to me of less of talent and more of buy-in. And that has to be a little bit worrying. So they need to figure that out. They obviously need to add some backline depth. I think that they need to get Hassani Dotson more minutes at defensive midfield. They have to figure out if Adrian Nuno is sunk cost or if they need to go out and get a big number 9, but like this team has a window of contention with Ozzie Alonso still being able to give you 2,000 real Ozzie Alonso minutes and Michael Boxall having, a very, very good year in center back. Those guys are old. And to kind of toss it away in the way that it happened this year has to be really dispiriting for Minnesota fans and a worry for that staff going into 2022.
One thing
this is kind of random, but I felt bad for Dane St. Clair.
Yeah.
Just like his first game in a tough circumstance, and he just gets left out to dry. On that third goal, I can't remember a worse playoff goal that I can remember. As far as it's a beautiful strike by Blanco, but just from an effort standpoint, like it's just so unforgivable to look at the way it's the 66th minute.
You're only down 2-1.
You're down one goal. You're down 2-1 on the road. It's not like the game is over, right? But it looked like they had just completely checked out. The body language of Reynoso and Fragapane looked like as if they were playing like a directional possession game where the coach would call it when you lose possession and you reset. Like they just completely put their hand, like started pointing around and walking back. And there was no urgency to close down the space from anybody else on the team as well. And you leave Sebastian Blanco top of the box like that. What is, Dane St. Clair just got to pick it out of the back of the net. So it was brutal to watch from that standpoint. And if you're going to be in the playoffs, like the least you can do is give full effort, right? And even if you look at the top, you can say Reynoso is never really about the defensive effort, but go look at Sebastian Blanco and the way he tracks back. Go look at Ladero. Go look at a lot of these players who are the number 10s or the best players on the field and how much they work coming backwards. And that was just a moment where you're like, wow, okay, like it's 66th minute. You're down. It's 1-goal game. You give yourself a chance. And that was just so frustrating to watch.
We will not see any more Minnesota United this year. We will see Portland on Thanksgiving, as I said, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Thursday, Fox Deportes in Colorado. The number 1 seed, Colorado Rapids, setting a record for points for the clubs in the regular season. Now, what can they do? 2 games to get to MLS Cup, 3 games to win it. We talked to Cole Bassett earlier. Let's take a listen to that interview. It's an AT&T 5G call to the field. Out to Colorado, we go to Cole Bassett. A homegrown, a number 1 seed, a guy who's seen it all on this Rapids journey. Cole, what's up, man? How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. Just get ready for Thanksgiving, man. I'm juggling things here at the house. The wife's not too happy that we got to skip out on some afternoon. I wonder, though, how the Bassett family is handling this scheduling side of things here. Like, when is Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah.
How many people are coming? What's the deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we were just testing out the oven today to see if we could put the turkey in while we're at the game, and then it also cooks while they're here, and then we get back home and it's ready. But we don't want to have like the turkey burnt, so we're trying to figure that all out right now.
turkey burnt, also the apartment
like 8
burnt.
o'clock. Yeah, exactly. We got to test it out and see if it works. But we got our grandparents are in town as well, so it should be a fun one.
How many people at this dinner?
It depends if we have friends or not. I think friends from the game might come over after. Depends on how we're feeling, though. We got to get a win first. Otherwise, I don't really want to talk to too many people. So if we win, then we'll have a lot of people. Maybe like 15 or so, something like that.
If you win, Thanksgiving is on. If you, we won't even speak. We're not speaking about the alternative here. This is nothing but a celebration.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you? Clearly, you're a turkey guy, yeah? Or are you against your will is turkey served as it would be in my household?
No, 100% a turkey guy. Love. I don't think there's one thing on Thanksgiving I don't like. So,
What's
we'll
your
have
tops?
Just turkey with gravy. We'll have mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, green beans, everything, all the desserts, pies. Doesn't matter to me.
Eats it all. I'm going to recommend stuffing. You got the classics going there. A big Thanksgiving Day game, of course, for the Rapids. Timbers in town, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Big Fox Deportes is where you can watch this one. I'm curious, Cole, as you guys attempt to make this run, and it's just a 3-game one to get to MLS Cup. You got to win 2 games out west, then you're there. Do you remember 2010? How do you remember 2010, the last MLS Cup championship for this Rapids team?
Yeah, I was in 4th grade at the time, I believe, and it happened over the weekend, but then you always come in and you kind of share what you did on the weekend, and I said that the Rapids won, and I watched it, and our whole class that likes soccer was talking about it. So that's all I can really remember. I don't remember too much watching it, but I've actually became friends with Matt Kanji, who scored the winner. And he comes
Legend.
out in the off season and trains with us. Yeah, and you should see this guy. He's still so physically fit. It's unreal. I think he's like 34, and I mean, he still looks the exact same, maybe even better than he did. So it's pretty cool to meet the guy that won it for us. And then I obviously had Connor Casey as a coach for a little bit, so I've gotten to know some of those guys as well.
Man, word on the street is Matt Kanji still playing in Finland, still doing his thing. And he sacrificed it all, Cole. He sacrificed it all for the glory of the Rapids. That is one of those underrated MLS Cup stories of all time, and I'm so happy that Mac is under the radar.
I can't believe Cole Bassett and Matt Kanji trained together. That is the greatest episode of this season.
Yeah, I know. And it wasn't like we texted each other. We just ended up, he lives here in the offseason. I think his family lives here. So he was just out at one of the local fields that we used to play at growing up. Me and Seb Anderson were just out there, and we saw him, and then we started inviting him to group pickup because during COVID last year we had to find a way to play to get ready for the season. So he was coming out with us every day. We were playing like 6-on-6 and just getting ready for the season, and he's out there. So yeah, it's fun.
So take us into this season. You're part of the best regular season in Rapids history. You guys are the number 1 overall seed, and for a while there, it didn't quite look like you get there, but results went your way, and of course you handled business. You've been there when it wasn't this good as well. Take us back to 2019, I think it was, to the CONCACAF Champions League / preseason, whichever one it was, and then this journey of Connor Casey to Robin Fraser and this steady rise up to the top of the West.
Yeah, I mean, when I first came in, it was pretty. I mean, I was just turned 17, and I think within a month I was starting games for this team. It wasn't too hard to break in, if I'm being honest, and just overall the whole league has changed. Like, it's crazy for me to see the way that this league has grown and turned into, honestly, it's got to be up there with leagues in Europe for competitiveness. Like, when I first joined, I don't think it was, but the quality that's came into this league over recent years it's crazy to be a part of it at least. So, I mean, a couple of years ago, we had some talented guys, and I think there's still a couple of us that are on this team, Jack Price, Danny Wilson, me and Kellen Acosta. We've all kind of been through it all together. But I just think once Robin Fraser came in, it kind of just changed the culture in the locker room. We had a good team before, and I think Porig said it, that we weren't a 0-7-2 team or something like that. But I think just the way that Robin changed the culture and brought in guys that know how to win, and also guys that are hungry to win. A lot of younger guys, especially guys like Trusty and Jonathan Lewis, guys from different clubs in MLS. I think just bringing the whole group together has gotten us where we are.
When you look at the way you've played, though, this season, a lot of young players, as you said, not as much experience. What has allowed you to still be successful with a young group?
I mean, we have so much depth in this team, so it's kind of, we do have some experience with Drew Moore and Stephen Beitashour, Colin Warner. They've been around. They know what it takes to win. Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, stuff like that. But I mean, I think with the younger guys, sometimes we don't even think about it. Like, we're just kind of out there playing, and we're continuing to grow, and we're kind of just playing together. And that's the fun part. Is like, I remember during the summer we had a lot of guys out. I mean, Kellen was gone with national team, Johnny was gone with national team, Eunice Nomley was out with an ankle injury, and it was just the young guys stepping up for the most part. I remember there was a game in Austin, I think late July, and we had like 3 or 4 of the guys that played on my U17 academy team playing, and it was just so cool to see that all the young guys were stepping up and contributing and helping us get wins throughout the summer.
You talked about playing pickup with Seb Anderson. We talk about youth development all the time in MLS, but a lot of times it's Philly, it's Dallas, it's Red Bulls. The Rapids don't get mentioned as much, and as you said, you've been churning out players. Do you feel like a sense of pride to carry that, for the Rapids?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever will get the national media attention unless we win MLS Cup or something. Other kids are going to be talked about. Me and Sammy Vines talked about it all the time. It's like we had a great year last year, and other people get talked about. We don't really care at this point, but me and Sammy did feel kind of a pride in kind of raising the level of Rapids and try to get noticed at least for the young academy kids. We also want to show them that we deserve to be here. If you continue to work hard and push yourself, I think we showed that you can get into this first team, and then in Sammy's case also get sold to Europe as well, and know that you can be in the national team too. So for us, we take a pride in showing the community of Colorado that young kids can be brought up here and develop, and then also play in the first team here and help us win. It's not like we're just coming off the bench every game or playing a small role. me and Sammy were starting almost every game at the start of the year, and we've played big roles throughout the past 2 years. So I think it's important for us to continue that. And, he's gone now, so it's kind of on my shoulders. And, there's going to eventually have to be some other kids that step up one day and kind of take up that role.
Following Sammy and following Cole. By the way, you had an opportunity to leave. You didn't go, and you said in that moment that you thought that this team could win something and you wanted to stay. What made you believe that you guys could win something, and how difficult was that decision for you in the moment? I believe what was it? It was Porto, I think?
Benfica at the time. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple clubs during that time period that were interested, but it's always been my dream to go there, but this team just had something special. I mean, it's tough to turn down a club like Benfica. They're Champions League. They're one of the best clubs in history if you look back throughout the years and stuff like that. But I think for me, I knew what this team had. I mean, at the time, I think we were in like 4th place in the West, so it's not like we were at the top of the table and I kind of could see that we were going to win. I had to trust the process and see that we did have the quality of a group that could go win something. Obviously, I mean, finishing first in the West was great, but there is no trophy for that. It's not like we got Supporters Shield. So for me, it's kind of, we haven't done anything yet. There's been a lot of talk this last week celebrating it and stuff like that. But for me, I mean, it's really time to get down to business on Thursday and, hopefully try to win at least a trophy this year, because that's the whole reason why I stayed. And I think the whole team, not just me, is really motivated to do that.
Take us into the locker room a little bit. We talked to Robin Fraser a ton in his time around MLS. I don't think he likes us as much as he likes the people on the team. So he's a little guarded sometimes with us, sometimes opens up. But what's he like as a coach? What's the atmosphere that he sets? How is it that he interacts with all of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, off the field, he's a very humble, quiet guy, modest. He's easy to talk to when you're having a conversation that's not soccer. But I mean, when it gets down to business, he's really serious. And I think the biggest thing with us is that we watch a ton of video. It's the most video that I've watched with probably any coach. I mean, Greg Berhalter was up there with, being really detail oriented, but Robin, it's almost every single day. And that's kind of his interaction with players is he kind of wants you while you're here, you're really focused in and kind of, trying to do your job. And while you're in training, your mindset is just completely focused on training. But once you're away from it, you can kind of go enjoy yourself. And I think that's why a lot of guys have, found this place as a home that they like, because I think they know that they can come in and concentrate for a bit and then also just go live their life once it's outside of soccer. So I think there's a level of comfort here between the team. And I think that's what has kind of brought us together as a team is we all feel so close and bonded together while we're here. And then we go live our lives outside of it.
Seems like the whole process is designed to get the most out of you. And when you look at the roster, you look at the DP spend, you look at the production on that side. Eunice has been hurt, unfortunately for him, but you guys are first in the West, basically with the lowest output from designated players in the whole league. Describe to me how Robin wants you to play and what it is you guys think of as yourselves as a team. Like, what are your strengths? What are the things that you do well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Robin always says that the biggest strength is the team, that we have so many guys that I mean, we could probably put 20 guys out there before you think, oh, this actually might hurt our team a little bit in terms of quality. So I think that's a big plus for us is that, a lot of teams have maybe 14 guys or so that they trust. But, once you're getting down to the subs late in games, I mean, last game versus LAFC, we brought on me, Mikey, Baji, Andre Shinishiki, like all of us could be starting. And then we ended up scoring a couple goals at the end. And, I think they only had like 3 subs to bring on. So that's probably the biggest difference with us, but also just in terms of tactics, I think we're so fluid in the systems that we play and the movement. Robin's kind of made it so that throughout games, we kind of just learn, we kind of think the same way as Robin. Like we're kind of just fluidly moving throughout the game, and we all know like we have to be in certain spots kind of, but it doesn't matter who's where and what system we're playing. So we kind of end up, teams throughout games, it seems like they kind of don't know exactly what we're doing, because sometimes we'll be in a 5-back, we'll rotate to a 4, sometimes to a 3, 2 6s, 1 6, 2 forwards, one, like it changes all the time. And I think that kind of messes with teams throughout games, is that they don't really know where we're going to end up eventually.
You mentioned how deep this team is. You guys have been off for a little while. How intense are the inter-squad scrimmages over this time? Are you guys just bashing each other?
Yeah, it's been pretty intense, no lie. Me and Diego Rubio got into it a little bit. We're competitive. Like this whole team, it's been like that throughout the whole year. We want to win, and I think we've brought that competitive edge every single day to training. You're only out there for an hour and a half. Try to get the most out of it, and that's what we tried to do the past couple of weeks, because it is tough not playing for 3 weeks. But luckily, we did get that first game in the semifinals, which does help. We're not waiting as long as New England is, but we've had to find ways to be prepared, and that's come through a couple of inter-squad scrimmages. So it has gotten a little intense, but nothing too bad to where we're getting people out of the playoffs and stuff like that.
Are we keeping a record though?
Yeah.
Who's winning?
Got to be a record.
Well, the thing is, they change it up so much. So
okay.
There might be like a couple guys that have won a few more than other people, but they change the teams all the time.
You're not going to change the team. You're getting the Timbers. We learned that last night. I'm assuming you watched the game. You saw Sebastian Blanco out here just banging him. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. Last time we played Portland, they kept him on the bench the whole game, which we were surprised at, but it did help us. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference between last game and this game is they didn't have Blanco. And I think that's why last game it was a little bit easier to deal with them. But, they're still a great team. They've got so much attacking power going the other way. When Asprilla opens his legs, either the Charas, Blanco, and then more finishing stuff on the other end, it's tough to stop. So we're excited for this matchup. I think it should be an interesting one. They're a team that's tough to kind of break down at times. They sit in really deep and then they counterattack very fast, but we just got to be aware of that. And especially at home, we can just continue to wear them out, hopefully. And if we can put a couple goals away earlier, I think that will change the game for us.
You look at your team, the ability to break teams down, and Marc-Anthony Kaye has been a big part of that coming over from the trade. What do you make of him as a person and as a new element to this team?
Yeah, he's a close friend of mine. I love Mark. He's kind of helped me out a little bit because he's been experienced with Bob at LAFC and the way that they play. And it's a little bit different style than we play here, but that's kind of the style that I want to play and be able to be a person that's, on the ball a lot and dictates the game. And he's kind of helped me with that. And then also he's a Canadian international. I want to be playing at the international stage, and we talk about that sometimes as well. But he's just been a great guy. When he first came in the first couple of games, you could kind of just see a chemistry between us. At least we felt it on the field, and we haven't played together as much recently because there's just been so much change in our lineup and roster. But I still enjoy playing with him a ton, and he's a great guy in the locker room. Boy,
Canadian international. There were years past where that wasn't as admirable as it is now, which is an incredible thing. Before we let you go, I just got to ask you personally, like, you made this decision to stay. You're trying to break in here to the senior national team and advance your career. Mm-hmm. When you look at this offseason, perhaps, or the next couple years down the line, where do you want to be? How do you want to get there? What do you envision? What do you dream about?
If we're talking about the national team, I want to be a part of that World Cup next year. I think a lot of people wouldn't even consider my name in the mix if you talk to Twitter people or whatever. I don't pay too much attention to that, but for me, I have a belief in myself that I can get there. And maybe it's not staying here. We'll kind of reconsider things at the end of the year and see what's best for me. Right now, I'm obviously completely focused on our playoff run and trying to win an MLS Cup. But in the future, you do look at the guys that are in the national team in my position, and almost all of them, except for maybe Sebi Leggett, are over in Europe. So I think that's a place that maybe I will need to end up just to continue my career. But the whole reason why I stayed right now is that I feel like I'm still developing here under Robin Fraser. If I didn't feel that, I think I would have left. But that was a big part of it for me, is that I'm going to continue to develop here. But, as the end of the season comes, I think if I want to really push myself and be on level with Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams, and even my teammate Kellen Acosta, it's a good gauge for me to see that he's in there because I get to train with him every single day. So I kind of know what's expected to be in there. But I think eventually I probably will have to go to Europe to continue my career. But as of right now, I'm still trying to, get better here. And, there's a December camp coming up. So hopefully we could win MLS Cup and then head thereafter.
What are the specific things on the field? Because I think for all of us watching you, you made great runs into the box to score goals. You're clean on the ball, but felt like this year you started to pop in terms of how much you were around the ball, how much of the game you were affecting. What are the things you are focusing on to take your game to the next level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got so much stuff still that I want to work on. Look, I got a long career, and I know I'm just beginning it, and I'm not going to be one to say that I'm the hardest on myself out of anybody. So I know I still have a long way to go, but the biggest things for me is, like you said, being around the ball a lot. I've looked at my numbers, and compared to guys, I know Blanco's a little bit of a different player than me, but just like him and Reynoso, they're on the ball so much. I think me and Brendan Aronson kind of talked about this one time is, it's hard to get involved. Sometimes as a younger player, they don't give you the ball as much, but I think for me, it's trying to help dictate play a little bit more, and then also continuing to work on my defensive side. I think being more physical and getting into more tackles if I am going to end up as more of an 8 box to box. I think that's something that I need to add in my game. And I think the biggest thing for me, though, which is what I've talked with the coaches, is, doing well under pressure. When I have our system here, it kind of relies on the front guys to hold up the ball a fair amount. And that's something that I haven't been used to, at least, being kind of a hold-up guy. But I've had to get used to it. And I think if I continue to develop where nobody can really take the ball off me, I think that's a big thing for me that I can continue to work at. And, obviously score goals and assists. I was not happy this year with how many posts I've hit. But
I think you might be the league leader.
Yeah,
you're right up there at the top.
I don't like to hear, but yeah. I mean, if half those go in, I'm the leading goal scorer. But it's tough for me to see that because you're literally inches away from scoring maybe 8 to 10 goals this year. But it is what it is, and I think I can just continue to work at that and make sure those go in next year.
The margins are thin. Same thing in the Audi 2021 MLS Cup Playoffs. Rapids Timbers, Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Thursday is Thanksgiving, folks. I don't have to remind you of that. Fox Deportes. I don't think we're going to get a Vinny Sartini moment from you, are we, Cole? You're not going to guarantee victory or anything like that, right?
No, I mean, hey, Portland's a great team, and I'm not going to give him any Sartini moment. That was pretty bold on his part. But, it should be a great game, though.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us, man. Looking forward to watching your career wherever it is, whether it's on a march to MLS Cup or headed to Europe as well. Good luck, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, big thanks to Cole for joining us. Every question we asked, and Dave, this is what you said afterwards, was like, you ask a question and you're like, I wonder if he'll give this answer, give us insight here. And he's like, I will do that in addition to telling you about this insider thing with Matt Conji pickup, or me and Brendan Aronson talking about how to get into the league. Really fun interview there. Should be a fun game on Thanksgiving as well. Tune in on Fox. One thing from this game, from each of us. Doyle, get it started. What are you thinking about? Player, tactics, coaching decision, etc.?
Larius Mabiala. He was fantastic against and just dominant against Minnesota United, and he can be that for long stretches, as we saw last summer, MLS's back tournament. And he's been less consistent over the course of the year, but they need that version of him again. Both because obviously he's a very good attacking piece on set pieces, but also defensively, you're going against the Colorado Rapids. The Rapids don't have a DP, not really, but they get like DP production off of set pieces. They are the most dangerous restart team in the entire league, and they have been for like 3 straight years. Larius Mabiala has to be huge this game for Portland if they have any chance of advancing.
That's why Jack Price would be my guy. Delivery, impeccable, and the Rapids have the runners. But that whole midfield, between him, between Kellen, and I would assume Mark Anthony Kay, and maybe Cole pushes his way in there, TBD, maybe off the bench. That's where a lot of this game is going to be won, not in least because the Rapids are so fluid in the way that they want to play, and those guys' ability to do it all is a big reason for that. Give me one thing. What do you got, Dave?
For me, it's still the fullbacks defensively, how you can attack them. For the Timbers, and you saw it on the Minnesota goal. Bravo's fishing, Van Rinken's 45 yards away from Fragapane when he scores the goal, even though he checked his shoulder and saw him there. And Mabiala was great, but he has to be. And if you look at this Rapids team, with those different formations and styles, it could be wing backs, it could be a 4-3-3, it could be a lot of different looks. So whether it's Jonathan Lewis and Shinashiki finding space out wide, or Mikey Barrios, or Rosenberry, or Estevez, whoever it is, the Rapids have a lot of different players that can attack that space. And I thought one of the things that went wrong for Minnesota was they stopped doing that. And I think that's got to be your full tactics for 50, 60 minutes to open the game, is just keep going at them, keep going at them, because they will make mistakes, whether it's a foul in the box or just being able to beat them 1v1 and create opportunities. That, to me, is where the Rapids' advantage exists.
Wrap it up, Kalen.
Yeah, same thing. I think there's space on the wings. Lewis and Barrios matchup problems, I think, for Portland, and then that battle in the middle and midfield with Kay. Can he they can win the ball and turn Colorado around, turn Portland around, and try and use some of that pace and behind and on the wings. That's a good look for Colorado.
Thanksgiving, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, Fox Deportes. We'll look at this more, I'm sure, Tuesday night after those matches on FS1 and Fox Deportes. Make sure you tune in there. Look, we've spent like an hour and a half here, and I still have basically what would amount to in normal times an entire show that we could do here, whether it be Bob Bradley, Josie Altidore, these awards that just dropped. Newcomer of the Year, we have that. That's Chicho Arango. I voted for Ryan Gauld personally, but Chicho Arango had an incredible season, so I think that's deserved for the LAFC man. You'd think they'd be building around him. All-State Goalkeeper of the Year in a big sweep was Matt Turner. The numbers were not even close, so he wins his. He's probably deserved it in the past, but he finally gets it this time around. The Young Player of the Year, we haven't talked about that. That was a big debate between Tejan Buchanan and Ricardo Pepi. I stand by and will forever stand by my Ricardo Pepi vote. He did win this award, but Canadians were not happy about that. But they will be happy that we are going to talk Canadian Championship quickly. Montreal. I was almost.
Look at that! Look at that!
God,
I cut myself off, though. I cut myself
Montreal
off.
made an impact
Yes.
this weekend in the Canadian Championship.
1-0. They didn't make the playoffs, but they beat Toronto FC in the battle for Canada and for a CONCACAF Champions League spot. Georgie parading around with that trophy afterwards. It was pretty good to see redemption as well, and a trophy in the first year for Wilfred Nancy. So any thoughts on that, David? We just want to focus on Toronto FC because it's not official yet, but Bob Bradley left LAFC. It seems all but confirmed that he is going to Toronto FC.
we should
what
take
now?
7 seconds to mention that Montreal won a trophy.
I mean,
just said it at
you
home.
used up
Wilfred?
all that time on Andres Pereira, though. Do you want to give us a few more minutes?
Yeah, fair. But I think they outshot TFC 20-1 in this game. Kyoto with a great finish, and that was obviously one of the issues all year. Was when Kyoto wasn't in with Mason Toye out, they haven't had a finisher. So having him in there was huge, but they came out ready to win. And I think for Wilfred Nancy, what a first season to deal with all the stuff they've dealt with, to leave with a CCL spot, a trophy, and then just to miss the playoffs on decision day and then come out and put this performance out there. Not just the win, but as Doyle said, the way that they just played them off the field, I think shows you the belief in the group, the belief in the team, that they're connected to him, that they want to play for him, that they want more, and doesn't feel like huge changes are needed. It's just tweaks to upgrade some of the things under him. So I think a pretty exciting year overall for Montreal.
But what about Toronto FC? Bob Bradley. Does he fix it?
I mean, complete teardown, right?
Yeah, it feels like it has to be.
Reports already have Josie out the door. There were reports earlier this year that Jefferson Soteldo is, maybe not as enamored of life in Canada as he thought he would be, and so maybe that's another DP that opens up. That central defense needs work. Goalkeeper needs work. The wingers have
They
not
played Michael at center back in this game, and it's a train wreck. So.
Yeah, so I mean, they like this team, I think, is going to look very different, and I think the front office is going to look different too. By the time this is out, I expect there will be news out of Toronto's front office about certain departures. So, I mean, it's a new era, and it doesn't look great right now, but we've seen Bob Bradley turn teams around real fast in the past. That includes, obviously, Chivas USA. The only good moment of Chivas USA's existence really was when Bob Bradley was coaching them. So, Caitlin, I saw that.
Hey, Preki had a moment. Preki had a moment.
Sure. Preki had a moment following up. But if you're a Toronto fan, you should probably be pretty happy that Bob Bradley is taking over this project because he's shown the ability to build winners in the past. And you know that he's going to get resources to do so here.
But what about LAFC? That's the big question. They may live to regret this one. I think if you look at Bob's legacy, certainly, it's the supporter shield, it's the heights of that season, it's getting the absolute most out of Carlos Vela. But I think even more so in a general sense, it's just the style of play. Like, you got to come in MLS as an expansion team and play that way, like aesthetically as good as we've really seen in this league. That's incredible and special. And though it didn't result in any trophies outside the Shield, I have a lot of questions about who they're going to hire and whether they can replicate some of those things, especially given some of the decisions on the personnel side in the last year and a half that have sort of led us to this point, whether it be the Walker trade or otherwise a lot of the signings. There's some work to do for LAFC. Remember, they weren't in the playoffs either.
Talking to me about Andres Pereira, Weeby's got a diatribe about LAFC in the playoffs.
It's LAFC. Bob Bradley left.
Oh, my God.
Pereira's a sub off the bench, man. Anyway, there are now 5 spots seemingly open in MLS for head coaches. We'll talk Altidore later. The home openers are out. I'm excited personally for Charlotte LA Galaxy at Bank of America Stadium. We'll talk about more of those in the future when they're a little bit closer. That's it for us. Enjoy the action on Tuesday night on FS1 and Fox Deportes, and of course on Thanksgiving on Big Fox and Fox Deportes. We'll see you on Tuesday night. Of course, post-game shows on MLS channels every night of this Audi 2021 MLS Cup Playoffs. Adios, everybody. Enjoy your week. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with Extra Time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more Extra Time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.